Episode 2 Living, Not Dead. Min shows the newly revived Seon the Abyss, explaining that he brought her back from the dead and identifying himself. Seon understandably thinks he's crazy, but Min rattles off all of the men she dated over the years instead of him, and she cuts him off when he starts to recount the time he'd ordered 5 chickens when her parents opened a restaurant. Seon snaps that even if she believed him, why was he reborn gorgeous and not her? Min admits that's not his doing and reminds her of Abyss rule that it revives people in the form of their souls. Seon takes Abyss from him and stares at it in shock while Min throws his jacket around her shoulders. Min reasons that while it sounds insane, there's no other explanation, and Seon agrees, and then vows to figure it out herself. Fellow prosecutor Jiwook exits the station with Detective Dongchul. Jiwook is on his way to Seon's burial, but Dongchul can't go since he's still searching for Min. Seon accosts Jiwook at his car, guessing he's going to her burial and volunteering to drive. Jiwook mistakes her for his and Seon's co-worker that relocated to New York, wondering why she's being so pushy. Seon's voice warbles as she reveals who she is, begging him to hurry since she needs to get to the site before the casket is buried. Jiwook demands an explanation, but his hand on her wrist triggers Seon's memory of her murder. Someone had suddenly attacked her in her apartment and tied her up, blindfolded. As he stabbed her, he rasped, "You didn't know you'd die, right? I didn't think I'd get to kill you either." The flashback is too much and Seon collapses. Min runs out and catches her just in time, frantically calling her name as Jiwook watches with increasing confusion. At the hospital, Min pesters the doctor to examine Seon again since she still hasn't woken up. Apparently he's already made them perform multiple tests that all came back clear, and the doctor firmly tells Min that Seon is sleeping and he just needs to wait. 2 nurses gossip over Min's devotion, and while one is tickled by what a great boyfriend he is, the other is clearly bitterly jealous and sends Seon the stink eye. Min is thrilled when Seon finally opens her eyes. He tells her she's at the hospital and Seon panics that she's missing her burial. Meanwhile, Dad and Jiwook shovel dirt over Seon's casket. Park Ki-bum, the father of one of the Sandong killer's victims, sits before an altar for his deceased wife. He places a box cutter on the table and tells his wife that it's over now. Clutching his daughter's bloody uniform to his chest, he sobs. At the prosecutor's office, a coworker delivers a box to Jiwook, seeming to think it's yet another gift from his girlfriend. Jiwook's uneasy expression suggests otherwise, and he opens it alone in his office to find a note, though we don't get to see what it says. Meanwhile, Seon storms out of the hospital as Min chases after her, weakly protesting that her burial is over. She snaps that she's not dead, but her parents are grieving and Min can do nothing but follow after her. At the cemetery, someone is already digging Seon's grave up, however. It's Jiwook, and he stumbles back as he unearths the coffin to find it empty. By morning, everything is back in order as Min and Seon stand at her grave. Min chatters that it's probably best they don't dig up the casket, since her parents won't be able to accept the truth, that she's been reincarnated in a different body. Seon cuts him off to ask for the soju they bought and pours it over her grave, vowing to find her murderer. At work, Jiwook learns from Dongchul that while Min's credit card has been used, he hasn't appeared. Additionally, the amounts are too small to suggest theft, so they're considering Min had an accomplice. Dongchul starts to mention Seon's work on the Sandong killer, but Jiwook snaps that they should be focusing on her murder right now. Seon leads Min into her apartment and instructs him to tie plastic bags around his shoes as she does the same. Min questions whether she really needs to see the crime scene but tramps down his own uneasiness when Seon gripes that he can leave. Seon is also shaken by the scene, but pushes aside the flood of awful memories to scoop up some of her business cards that were scattered on the floor. They're interrupted by the sudden appearance of Dong Min's detectives who've come to clean up the mess at Jiwook's suggestion. The detectives bark at them to leave and Min is anxious to comply, but Seon doesn't budge. She asks if the forensics are done, fibbing that she's a relative of Seon, which Min immediately backs up. The detectives assume they're also there to clean. Afterwards, Seon eats heartily at a restaurant while Min can't seem to stomach his food. He calls her odd, but she argues that despite being resurrected from the dead, she's painfully average. She grumbles at her appearance and Min agrees that compared to her previous form, she's more common now. Seon's stink eye has him quickly backpedaling that common isn't a bad thing. Min finishes that she should just accept this as her soul's appearance. How am I supposed to navigate this world with such a hideous body? She whines and Min snaps that she became like this because of her shallow views on life. They bicker about their souls and Min finally suggests that they should be nicer since they were given a second chance. Seon saunters off, but pauses to flash a newspaper headline of her death, calling Min a murder suspect. Min cries that he didn't kill her, and as they walk, Seon agrees it's an odd leap. She does tease that no one held a grudge against her like Min did. He demands why he would kill her and then bring her back, and Seon shrugs, who knows what a psychopath thinks. She detours to a coffee shop and tells Min to cover her bill, citing that she's just been revived and has no money. Min grumbles that there's no denying she's Saeon, but as he pulls out his credit card, Saeon yanks his arm back. She drags him outside and chides him for leaving a trail when he's on the run from the police. Min finally clicks to why the detectives seem to always know where he was, and Saeon snatches his wallet. She starts to say they can only use cash but only finds a few small bills in his wallet. Min sheepishly points out no one carries cash these days. Looking him over, Saeon gets an idea and drags him to a pawn shop. Min's wallet, watch, and even shoes are quickly exchanged for cash as Saeon barters with the owner for the best deal. Next, Saeon hits the subway station and bribes a homeless man so they can each get burner phones. Min cheerfully tells Saeon to put him as number 1 on her speed dial, and Saeon snips that he's so old-fashioned. Meanwhile, Park Ki-bum receives a mysterious package from a bike messenger. Inside is a note we can't read and a bloody piece of glass. He looks up in shock, wondering if someone is still alive. Min asks Saeon if they should eat now that they've gotten cash and phones, but is immediately shot down when he suggests beef. Saeon points out that they're too strapped for something fancy and leads him to a convenience store. As she loads their basket, Min pouts that her haul costs as much as a restaurant, but Saeon ignores him. They start checking out, but the food items are past their expiration date. The young cashier offers to replace them, but Saeon sighs that it's a violation of the Sanitation Act and this convenience store was just recently issued a citation for the same thing. The young man pleads with Saeon not to report it since he'll surely be fired, and she agrees not to make a fuss, but wants something in return. Saeon happily pours herself a drink as she and Min sit outside the store with their free haul. She explains that this store is notorious for leaving expired items on the shelves and pocketing the money from the unsuspecting buyers. Min pities the cashier, but Saeon quips that Min should worry about his own problems. Min chides her for breaking the law despite being a prosecutor, and Saeon snaps that they have to survive while living like ghosts. A wave of guilt washes over Min and he apologizes to Saeon for not doing things differently that night and preventing her murder. Saeon doesn't blame him though, and says it's her fault for making him buy her hangover drinks. The store's CCTV catches her eye since it's pointed in the wrong direction out towards the street. They head inside to watch the footage from the night of Saeon's murder as she explains that the killer would have had to pass this convenience store going to and from her house. Unfortunately, the footage is incomplete as the cashier, who had initially turned it away because his boss was spying on him, had turned it back towards the counter. The cashier's boss suddenly returns and he makes Saeon and Min hide. He leaves after chewing the cashier out, and Saeon and Min start to leave. The cashier's mention of his boss' habit of parking backwards sparks an idea in Saeon, and she confirms that the manager had done the same on the night in question. At home, Mom is furious that Min has been labeled a murder suspect. She instructs her assistant to do whatever it takes to make this go away and find Min. The housekeeper eavesdrops anxiously at the door and then runs to her room to pull out a bag with Min's bloody clothing. Saeon and Min head over to Saeon's parents' chicken restaurant and she sneaks them in to spend the night. Min is itchy and Saeon identifies it as an allergic reaction, guessing it was the nuts he ate at the convenience store. Min says he's never been allergic and wonders if it came with his new face. He's suddenly startled by a cuckoo clock and clings to Saeon. She warns him not to add sexual harassment to his murder charge, and Min says that he really wasn't trying anything. Saeon scoffs that he's chased her for 20 years, but Min points out that she looks different now and he seems to have lost interest. Rather, with his new attractive face, Min thinks he's the one who should be concerned. Saeon lies awake staring at a vase of dead flowers and tells Min that her mother never let them wither. A few tears escape her eyes, but Saeon says they need to sleep so she can catch her killer. Min asks why she won't just cry, but Saeon says it's a waste of tears. Min pats her head and starts rattling off praises, but gets stuck on the most beautiful, realizing she's not anymore. He keeps backpedaling to Saeon's annoyance, but succeeds in brightening her mood as they bicker. The next morning, Park Ki-bum looks at the bloody glass and flashes back to a rainy night. A man gets out of a taxi that Park Ki-bum is driving. He gets out after the man and shoots him with a nail gun. Pulling out his box cutter, he slices the man's Achilles tendon. Oof. He tells the man that his daughter was murdered and says he'll return that pain now. In the present, Ki-bum looks down at the contents of his mystery package and we now see the note reads, "You thought it was over? No, not yet." Min and Saeon eat triangle kimbap on a park bench, but Min is already sick of eating cheap meals. He suddenly asks Saeon for 10,000 won, roughly $10, before realizing that it's technically his money. Saeon grudgingly hands him a single bill and warns him to spend it wisely. Saeon's parents return to their restaurant and Mom immediately zones in on the fresh flowers in the vase, as Min walks by outside with a smile. "Aw, what a sweetie." He returns to Saeon and she pesters him as to what he'd bought. Min grows nervous at her proximity and gently pushes her away, muttering he can't get used to her face. Saeon mumbles he's good looking for no good reason, but denies having said anything when Min asks her to repeat herself. The convenience store manager pulls up, then, wondering why they'd called him. We don't see the exchange, but as Se-yeon reviews the black box footage from the manager's car at an internet cafe, Min asks if it's okay for her to impersonate a prosecutor. Se-yeon snips that the business card was her own. Prosecutor Ji-wook visits someone at the hospital, but it's clear it's an unwelcome one as the patient's assistant nervously tries to usher him back out with excuses the patient is not well enough to see him. Ji-wook notes the putting equipment in the corner and smell of smoke despite the patient supposedly has difficulty breathing. Ji-wook says the man seems to be making tremendous progress, which would allow them to put him back in custody and tells the man to get up already. The man, who'd been faking sleep, jolts up and snaps that he went to school with Ji-wook's father, threatening to call him. Ji-wook is unfazed and says he'll be digging into the man's phony hospitalization, promising to see him soon. As he leaves, Ji-wook overhears some doctors panicking that the surgeon he'd questioned with Se-yeon earlier, Young-chul, has taken a sudden leave of absence. Ji-wook receives another call from Jae and this time he answers and we hear a woman screaming to be let out. The line suddenly goes dead and Ji-wook puts his phone away. Meanwhile, Min's ex-fiancé, Hee-jin runs barefoot through a warehouse and ducks behind a barrel. Someone else follows slowly after, dragging a pipe and humming to himself. Min checks his original phone and sees multiple messages from his mother and housekeeper, but nothing from Hee-jin. Se-yeon returns from the bathroom and immediately switches it back off, reminding him the signal can be tracked. Se-yeon suggests he stop moping over Hee-jin since she'd stolen the deposit on their newlywed home and ran off after saying she couldn't stomach living with him. She calls Hee-jin a gold digger and Min snaps that Se-yeon's the one that introduced them. Se-yeon changes tactics and says even if Hee-jin changed her mind, Min is now a murder suspect. She suggests he help her solve the case and Min cries that if only she'd come back to life in her original body, she could have exonerated him. Se-yeon bristles and Min asks what her plan is. She brings up the black box footage on her phone and says the only person that passed by was a taxi. Min asks why her neighbor isn't a suspect and Se-yeon says she's positive she didn't know her killer. Min spots the cardboard man in the footage as well, but Se-yeon says she knows him. Se-yeon wants to look up the taxi and debates sneaking into her office. A man with long hair and a scar on his neck walks up the steps of the prosecutor's office and accidentally bumps into a woman coming out, scattering her papers. She curses at him as he stoops to help gather them. Min and Se-yeon run over to help and the woman storms away once her papers are returned. Se-yeon is appalled at the rudeness of the woman and suddenly remembers where she'd seen her own face before. Flashback to a karaoke bar where Se-yeon sang and danced while her co-workers cheered, all except for one. Mi-do, the co-worker Se-yeon didn't like, also played by Park Bo-young. Mi-do had clearly been bitter about the attention Se-yeon was getting and when Se-yeon returned to her seat, Mi-do dragged her outside. In the restroom, the women had faced off. Mi-do admitted she never liked Se-yeon, which Se-yeon confirmed she already knew since Mi-do had been bullying her at work. Mi-do snidely called Se-yeon out on rumors that she got a higher conviction rate because of her looks and then launched into a slew of curses and insults. In the present, Se-yeon dons a pantsuit and heads over to the law firm Mi-do had been leaving the prosecutor's office for. She easily impersonates Mi-do, who's been out of the country, and with Min's quick thinking, gets the key to Mi-do's new suite. In their new place, Min opens a box and finds a picture of Mi-do, musing that they really do look alike. Se-yeon giddily asks to see as well, but gasps when she sees the picture is of Mi-do with Detective Dong-chul, realizing they're dating. At the station, Dong-chul receives a text from Mi-do, who's really Se-yeon, asking him to look up the license plate of the taxi driver. He asks his coworker what it means when an ex suddenly texts and asks something ridiculous and is told she likely wants to get back together. Dong-chul is flustered and the other detective guesses that it's the girl that dumped him to study abroad. Dong-chul denies it and vows not to give in and text back, which lasts all of 10 minutes before Se-yeon receives a reply with all the information, plus a plea as to where she is and how she's doing. Min is relaxing in a bubble bath when Se-yeon bursts in, eyes shielded, to demand he get out since they know the taxi driver's identity. Meanwhile, Dong-chul anxiously waits for a reply that never comes. The taxi driver is Park Ki-bum, as we'd seen in his flashback. Se-yeon and Min head over to his address and Min knocks on the door. No one answers, but Se-yeon finds the door unlocked. Min tries to suggest he'll go first, but she ignores him. Meanwhile, Ki-bum sits in his taxi outside someone's house, remembering that rainy night, and we see a second sentence on the note which reads, "You're next, I hope you enjoy the pain." At his house, Se-yeon sees the family portrait and recognizes him as the father of one of the Eum Sandong killer's victims. Elsewhere, the snotty prosecutor is brutally murdered in her car by the long-haired man. He says she shouldn't have looked down on him before ripping out her black box camera. Min calls Se-yeon into another room and she gasps when she sees the walls plastered with photos and newspaper articles all surrounding the Eum Sandong killer case, one of which is a photo of Surgeon Young-chul, who made sutures eerily similar to those on the victims. Park Ki-bum glares up at a house and mutters, "It doesn't matter if you're still alive." I'll kill you over and over again, until you die for good. Seon pulls Youngchul's photo off the wall, sighing that Ki-bum must have been chasing after him all this time. Min takes the photo from her, visibly shaken. He says he recognizes the man and not as a famous surgeon. Dongchul and his team speed across town after telling Jiwook that Seon had been suspicious of Youngchul and that upon looking into him, there's reason to believe she was right. Min reveals that he'd met Youngchul on the day Seon had died. He'd been the man Min had found dead on the street, and revived with Abyss. At Youngchul's house, Park Ki-bum turns and for the first time we see the long-haired man's face. It's Youngchul. He just looks older thanks to Abyss. Unfortunately, Ki-bum doesn't recognize him and Youngchul speaks as if he's his father. He asks Ki-bum inside and won't take no for an answer. Seon demands why Min didn't tell her sooner and he says he hadn't even known Abyss had worked. With horror, he realizes he revived a serial killer. Ki-bum steps into the house and behind him Youngchul mutters, "I guess you'll finally get to meet the daughter of yours you missed so much."